Oh yeah. Is this muted? Do you know?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want me to turn down the brightness on here?
Sure. Alright, and then do you want to log on to your phone and just make sure monitor
Last May, my aunt
I could do it. All right. You look like a professional.
Wow. That's not a weekend to see. Coming out of Florida. Everybody around
What's the
here.
name of our channel?
It's 5, so I'm going to go ahead and get started because we do have 4 speakers today. So if you are a new time or first time comer to STC, welcome. We are the student chapter at Texas Tech University. We have a couple people joining us online tonight, so if you are interested in joining or would be curious to learn more about it, myself, I'm the president, so I am happy to answer any questions, but we also have treasurer, vice president, and secretary right there on the front. So if you'd like to have that contact afterwards, please do so. Today's agenda will be a roll call / sign in. So if you haven't already, please sign in at the iPad up front. This just helps us keep track of who's been here. And then we're going to hear from 4 people about UX because happy World Usability Day, everyone. So we're very lucky and fortunate at Tech to have a relationship with one of the most well-respected usability testing companies, programs, software out there. So first we'll hear from Jack Labriola, who interned at user testing over the summer. We'll also hear from Michael Brooks, who comes to us from Auburn University, where he worked at the lab there. And then we have Kristen West, who will be speaking about her lab internship in the usability lab here on campus. We might also get some insight from Jacob if he feels so inclined. And then finally we'll hear from David Young, who will be able to talk about some courses that you might be interested in taking if you have a UX track in mind for your program here on campus. So with that, I will turn it over to Jack. We're good? All right. Stay tuned for a surprise announcement afterwards.
Hey, this thing isn't working.
Just give it a minute.
No, it says that the connection is bad.
What's going on? I'm gonna maybe turn the slide. This one?
Yeah, that looks good.
Close this a second, in case I get too excited about user testing. So my name is Jack Labriola. I am a third-year PhD student here at Texas Tech. My research focus is in usability, UX, interaction design, things like that. And over this past summer, I had the awesome opportunity to work as a UX research intern at usertesting.com. And for those of you who do not know what user testing is, very much like the name suggests, it is a website where you can set up tests to have people check out your app, your service, your website, things like that for companies around the world. And so, for example, if I had a project and I was developing a new website and I wanted to get actual participants to come and check out, what they think about the design, if there's any errors, things like that, I could write up a little test script, like many of you probably have in your usability testing class here, and I would just send it off into the ether of the internet. And what user testing will do is they will find people in your target demographic to actually go and take your usability test on whatever it is that you put up there. And so what's actually really great about them is that they do all that recruitment work for you. So we are very fortunate to have the usability lab here in our department, but for those of you who don't have access to it, or once you leave here, or whether or not maybe the target demographic you're looking for is available at Texas Tech, usertesting.com is a pretty good source to find whatever it is you're looking for. And so I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about what the average day looked like being a UX researcher. And then I kind of want to talk a little bit about the research methods that I did as a researcher, different kind of deliverables that they asked me to write or present on, and finally just a little bit about the different technologies, software programs, things like that, that we used to either do our tests, design things, and work together and collaborate. And so, it was really interesting. I was part of the product insights team, which was actually a team that was focused on user testing. You have to have a UX team that's actually trying to improve your own product, and it was really weird that I was doing that for a company that also did UX for other people. But it was a really interesting position because I got to know a lot more behind the scenes than I think the average person that works there. The average workday, though, was a really interesting mix of being individual work by myself at a desk, and they have those nice cool standing desks that like move up and down with the button for, when you need to get a little exercise in. And working a lot in groups across many different departments and kind of levels of position, whether that was just another researcher on a different team or a manager. I had a couple meetings even with like the owner and CEO that just came in and watched presentations. And so individual work was basically task-driven. It was, hey, we need to investigate X, Y, and Z problem. Go and figure out how we might go and do that. And so since you work at user testing and you might need to user test stuff, I had free credits to do whatever kinds of tests I needed to in order to get our information. And so I would create tests aimed at people who used user testing at their companies. And so say, one of the people is something like Microsoft. Microsoft uses user testing to test their products. I would go and talk to some people at Microsoft, see what they liked or didn't like about our product, our service, things like that, and come back and write reports and give presentations on how we might improve our product for those people, our biggest customers. And so I would go and do that work on my own, but then I would come and meet with other researchers that were maybe doing similar, like maybe someone else talked to Amazon. Another researcher went and talked to Google or something like that. And then we would all do our individual stuff and then come together and sort of collaborate on what we can pull from that data, right? And so what actually I ended up doing was working in Mountain View, California, beautiful Mountain View, California, 4 times a week, and then commuting to another campus for the company in San Francisco. In Mountain View itself, most of the researchers and engineers were the people that worked there. Most of the people that I would be working with on an everyday basis. But in San Francisco, they had most of the design team and the marketing people. And so while all the researchers were gathering our data and coming up with some cool insights about what we can do to improve our product, we would then go to San Francisco at some day during the week and sort of give a presentation on what we had found for that week's worth of research. Give that to the design team, see what we need to do in order to improve the product. And so that was kind of an average work week and things that we would do as a UX researcher. Now, research methods that I used, some of these probably things that you've also done in your classes. Things like surveys. We used SurveyMonkey. I'm sure many of you guys are familiar with SurveyMonkey. We also used Typeform, if anybody's heard of that. It's a really cool, like minimalist sort of survey tool. We conducted interviews. We did focus groups. I'm sure you guys have done some of these in your usability class as well. We did a couple of journey maps, depending on who the person we were going to finally deliver it to. Some people liked the journey maps. Other people just wanted you to write up a report. We did a design sprint, which was really intense, 5 days straight, Monday through Friday, for 8 hours at a time. There was a team of about 13 of us in a room. Luckily, they provided lunch, so we didn't get too testy for 8 hours. But it was really cool to work with a bunch of different people from different parts of the company. So we had a couple of researchers, we had a couple of designers, we had a marketing person, a salesperson, we had 2 project managers. So it was a really cool blend to kind of work through improving part of the user testing product. We did a couple of paper prototypes. Even as a UX researcher, even though we had an entire design team, we were still expected to be able to quickly sketch up a prototype, whether that was a hand-drawn thing or quickly sketching it up in something like InDesign or InVision or something like that. And lastly, of course, we did usability testing, and as I had said before, it was through usertesting.com. We used our own service. So those are kind of the research methods that I used as a UX researcher, and these are kind of the deliverables that I actually had to turn over to people or give to people. It may seem to go without saying, but we sent a lot of emails. But I will say those emails were far and few between in comparison to Slack, if anyone knows what that is. Sort of an instant messaging service mostly used for companies and things like that. Emails were the more formal documents, and so maybe you would attach some reports that you had written or a presentation or something to that. But if you just needed to quickly ask a question for someone, even a manager or something like that, just pop into Slack and send them a quick instant message. We wrote recommendation reports. A couple of people designed a couple of infographics for their presentations to give to people. People created journey maps. A lot of people were asked to do a lot with spreadsheets, whether that was Microsoft Excel, Airtable, or Google Sheets. And so having some of that basic knowledge of how to work with formulas and produce graphs and charts and things like that, just having that basic knowledge was helpful to give some of these deliverables to managers who wanted to maybe see more quantitative data rather than qualitative. We gave presentations once every week. As I said, we went to San Francisco and gave presentations. If we did not go to San Francisco, every morning at about 10 a.m. we had what we called sort of a huddle, where everyone in the company would hop on Zoom, which we now have in the English department. We would all hop on Zoom, and everyone's manager would kind of give an update on what had happened this previous week. And so maybe you weren't necessarily the one giving that presentation, but you helped inform it for your manager. We made prototypes, like I said, paper prototypes. We designed things in InDesign and Vision, things like that. We created testing protocols, scripts for testing. Most of this, if not all of it, got imported into user testing, which has its own downloadable form if you wanted to fill that out and kind of see what it would be like to actually translate that information into user testing's platform. And lastly, we would write up usability reports based on that data. And then, although this list is not every single thing that I used while I was there, I think it's important to note the certain kinds of tools and technologies that you might be able to get yourself familiar with, or you may already be familiar with. Gmail is what they used. They used a lot of Google-based products, so Google Drive, Docs, Slides, Sheets, things like that. Some people preferred Microsoft Office. They didn't use OneDrive like we have here, but just basic Microsoft Word, things like that, or PowerPoint. Most of the design team worked exclusively in the Adobe Creative Suite using InDesign and Illustrator and Photoshop. As a researcher, I think I used InDesign once or twice. I didn't need to be as much of an expert in it, but it was helpful to understand what I could ask a designer to do and kind of what I think that turnaround might be if I asked them to do something for me. For infographics, many people were using Pictochart or Venngage. They were kind of two of the top infographics if you were a researcher. If you were a designer and you're kind of a whiz in InDesign, you kind of just made it yourself in your own design tool. But alas, that was not me. We used usertesting.com to do our usability tests. We used Slack, like I mentioned before. Dropbox, very similar to Google Drive, right? It just needed some way to be able to share large files with people in a relatively quick way, especially when you have a cap of about 25 megabytes on an email, right? Airtable, for those of you who aren't familiar, is basically like Microsoft Excel on steroids. It's basically just all cells and things like that, but you can create crazy formulas and section things off and do a lot more than you can in Google Sheets or in Microsoft Excel. Two that I want to bring to your attention, I'm not going to go through the rest of these, but Mural and UX Pressia are two, I would say, UX specialty tools. Mural is a really good sort of journey mapping tool in terms of, basically it looks like a giant whiteboard. And you can kind of go through and create your own sticky notes and connect things together and type in notes. And the best part is there can be, I think, 10 people on it all at once. And everyone has a different color, and you see everyone's mouse and cursor going around making notes and things like that. It was really helpful to kind of be an ideas board and kind of be like, okay, cool, our users were saying these things, let's start grouping them together, start doing some sort of initial coding and stuff like that in order to create some journey maps. And then UX Pressia is actually built only for journey mapping. They have a bunch of templates to use in terms of creating start to finish, what are pain points during the process of whatever tool a user may be using. And so I had never heard of those before. I'd heard of most of the other things, or at least I knew, even if I didn't know Airtable, I'd used Google or Microsoft Excel once or twice in my life. But these are two tools that I think are really important if you're thinking about doing something UX, to understand at least what a journey map is and how you might create one, and how you might create one digitally through a particular tool like UXpress or something like that. Some of the other tools down on the bottom right are just your survey tools or prototyping tools. And then Zoom, which we have here, basically like Skype for video conferencing. And so this isn't a complete list of every single thing I ever used. I don't know if I can remember every single technology I ever used, but it was really helpful to kind of come in as a researcher, and when they asked me to do something or use a particular tool, I was like, I've never used this one before, but I know exactly how I'm supposed to work in Microsoft Excel versus Google Sheets or something like that. It's helpful to kind of understand the genre of tools that are available to you and what is sort of possible to use in those. So that was kind of one of my key takeaways from like how many technologies they're going to throw at you or say are available to use. And so that's kind of just the super quick overview of an entire summer's worth of work as a UX researcher, but I'm definitely happy to answer specific questions of a day-to-day project or something like that. But I did just want to kind of show you guys that a lot of the research methods and deliverables and technologies that people at a really huge UX company are using are things that you guys are using and learning in classes in this major, in this university and things like that. So you guys are on the right track, and if this is something that's interesting to you, I'm always happy to talk about it. That is my spiel, so thank you guys.
Step. You can sit, stand, or stay there. Up to you.
Oh, stand. I'm gonna sit. Is that all right with y'all? All right. All right. So my name is I've been in Lubbock 3 months. 3 months. Before this, I was at Auburn University, where I ran the lab for usability, communication, interaction, and accessibility. We love to call it Lucia. So Lucia was a joint project between communication and technical communication in the industry. So we started from the get-go working in a multidisciplinary environment, which of course had its own challenges. What I'm going to talk to you today is how I got started there, and then what my role as a business manager was made of. So at Auburn, when you start your master's there, at some point in the 2 years that you're there, you're going to be assigned some program assistant to one of the things that we have within technical communication. So I was assigned to the Ideal Lab, which is our learning lab. It was set up essentially in something that was the size of 2 closets. We had an observer computer and a participant computer. And we had a whiteboard and a stand-up screen to separate the observation area from the testing area. I had no idea what usability was or user experience or that this was even a thing until I was there for about a month. I learned real quick that I had to gain a lot of information, a lot of knowledge on Moray, on testing methods, and everything like that, because every single course that we have in technical communication there uses one of the 2 usability labs in some way at some point during the semester. And me being the program assistant, I had to learn how to use everything in that lab. I learned that I really liked it. I enjoyed it. It clicked with me. And so I knew that my friend Virginia, who was the business manager at the time for Lucia, was leaving. And so I went and talked to one of the directors of the lab. I told him, I said, I like this. I'm not sure that I love this yet, but I do want to be a part of it and I want to see. that's what got me started, is demonstrating interest, first and foremost. So if you're wondering how to even get started, the best thing to do is to talk to somebody who's already there. And I showed interest. I demonstrated my willingness to work both by myself and as part of a team, which is super important. So we fast forward, and I was in the Ideal Lab for my first semester at Auburn. I'm transitioned over to Lucia, which is our big lab, my second semester, and I was in training there. I took over as business manager that summer and actually worked through the summer and then the entire next year. Being the business manager is stressful. There's a lot of responsibility, but you learn a lot, you develop a lot, both as an individual and as a professional. Where for the three semesters, 3 or so semesters that I was actually running the lab, I worked with a huge team of interns every single semester to help accommodate the sort of testing that we do, the sort of research that we do. We had 2 observation rooms and 1 control room. The control room was in the middle, and we had observation rooms on the side that were modular and had 4 machines each. And so what we really tried to experiment with, because this is a joint venture, is with mass testing. And so there'd be times where we would have 8 people at one time doing that. And we experimented with layout, we experimented with ways to cut down on one participant being too heavily influenced by another. We relied heavily on using Moray as a recording tool, and we relied heavily on the TriCaster system, which I think we have at this lab too. There's cameras set up in the ceiling that I can control and record what's going on if we're not doing testing that takes place on a computer. And then we had drop mics hanging from the ceilings. So we'd have 4 people per room, 2 facilitators who would walk around, but largely this was largely unmoderated because we relied on Moray to do a lot of the giving out the tasks and recording the time. Well, as we relied on Moray to do almost all of that. And the facilitator was there to, 1, be a presence, and then 2, to answer any questions and to help solve any technical issues. And then we have 1 person in the control room, maybe 2, maybe. And that person would take notes on the group as a whole, and then make sure that everything got transferred to the observation computers if necessary. Afterward, we would always do focus groups. We relied on focus groups more than interviews because we, again, wanted to see how we tested them as individuals who were in a group, and then we ran focus groups with them as a group to help kind of give us that sort of co-discovery to allow them to lean on each other to help answer these questions that we had a lot of questions and to help answer them in 1 hour and provide us with rich enough data for it to be useful. That's the technical side of what I did. But being a business manager and running a lab isn't just technical skill. There's a lot of soft skill development that goes into that. A big part of my job was first managing teams of interns that would fluctuate per semester over a wide number of projects. So at one point we did a usability test of our library's archive website. We had, I think, 16 or 24 participants total, split between undergrads, grads, and faculty. We did transcriptions for each one. Each one was about an hour-long test, and then each group had focus groups with it. So now we're sitting with all of these data, and I've got to figure out where to assign people to make this happen. And things I think this up halfway through, so I didn't even start with this. I think I'm halfway through. We walked out of there with something like a 300-page report for the they rebuilt their website and they reworked, we had a contract to do it again. I don't know where that's at. So that's managing teams. That's a big thing. Being a team player, that's a big thing. I wasn't always in a leadership role. There are two directors from one from English and one from communication. We met once a week. They told me large scale, big picture. Right? Michael, we need to do X, Y, and Z for the business school. Okay. And then what would happen is I would take that project, look at it, delegate it to teams according to strengths, and then at the we had a 1 week process. And then after that, they get it back to me, and we curate it and send it off. So that's team management, project management, being a team player, and understanding that people have strengths and people have things they're comfortable with, and catering and being flexible enough to do that. Another part of my job was getting outside clients, and I say outside clients both outside the university and outside of the department. So we have a relationship with the business school, we have a relationship with the library, with agriculture, we have a relationship with industrial and graphic design. And all of these wanted different things. They weren't all websites. We had products that were physical that we could work on as well. Every single class outside of, I think, our introductory class for the TC program at Auburn had an outside client, was outside of the class. And they would be required to, at least for part of that project, to be in Chile. And so we had people from nonprofits. We had this company from the Netherlands who had this product where they would ship it to you. You prick your finger, and it tests your blood for all kinds of stuff. So in this document design class where we did that, students used the lab not only to design documentation and packaging and other material for this company, but they also used it to test the process, see how users interacted with them. Did the documentation make sense? Did it seem like it was alright? How did they feel about it when it changed? And so this full integration, coupled with me going out there and trying to hustle and get money myself, was a big part of it. Which leads to, again, the development of soft skills. Working as a researcher, working as a business manager, you can know all the skills that you want, but you have to be able to communicate with others and have a little bit of empathy and a little bit of understanding of, well, empathy for the users and what the users want, but also understanding of what your clients are going to need and finding that middle ground to negotiate that. So, long story short, if you want to get involved in something in UX or usability, especially here, go talk to somebody about it. One, don't be afraid to do that. A lot of us would love to have more interns and more people doing work so that I don't have to do it. Two, take some time to really think about how people interact with each other. And, understand that people have different needs. And understanding those needs helps you get to where you want if you're trying to get clients, if you're trying to get participants, if you're trying to get interns. And then finally, the big
lab is.
I would never.
Anyway, so our lab is up on the 3rd floor. It's down there. If you've ever walked past it, you notice that there's 2 different doors. One of them is a door for the observation room. The other is the testing room. Testing room has a couch, so go for that one. But the observation room has like a computer and all the really cool technology that Michael's talking about, Moray and different things like that. It's really cool. But how many of you are in the usability class right now? Or have taken it? Yeah? Who'd you have? What was the most like interesting thing that you guys took away?
Eye tracking, EMS, figuring out sort of the information architecture and how like people interacted with all of it. It's really cool.
Just the like different steps in the business, how they all seem to work.
I know, I mean, the department has done a really good job of making the track that I'm going to talk about, but one of them, which is usability. Even if you're not going into that, do you see like an application for usability beyond?
Absolutely.
What would be that application?
I think it's just really useful to be cognizant always of your audience. It's something that's kind of multidisciplinary, like thinking, well, who am I making this for? How effective is it going to be playing it up to your audience? I think working in usability kind of just makes you that much more aware of how it impacts like everything.
Yeah, it makes you think a lot deeper about who's actually going to be using this, because it's like you create something and it's gorgeous, and then it can't be used. You know,
I would say it kind of makes you a little bit better at everything.
Yeah.
From that point on.
What about you guys?
It's you can take it and design your own products, or you can help friends with their products, or you can go to other companies and do all sorts of stuff. And even just your audience, knowing your audience, that helps you with writing papers for completely unrelated stuff. Just knowing like how to tailor things to certain people.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, I mean, I'm not super usability, but like, it's just, as soon as I got involved with it, that was like everything else I did. It was in the back of my head. It's like, who am I writing this to? What do they need? What's all those sorts of questions? So it was really interesting getting involved with the lab. And after I had taken the usability class, I got involved in the lab and did stuff with them. But this semester we started a really cool study that, have you guys learned about product reaction cards from Microsoft? Yeah? So it's basically like the deck where every card has a different word on it. And you go through and like, if one of the words is like confused or something, you explain why the product is confusing or something like that. So our lab's been doing a really cool project where instead of words, we're giving pictures. And so that it's letting people take those pictures and making their own, sort of connections with issues and things with that with products. So I've been involved and I have moderated, it's like 8 or 9. Yeah.
9 to 10 so far.
Yeah, I moderated about 9 or 10 tests where we just sit down with users and we switched off, and I know some of you were involved with this, switched off using the text deck and then using the picture deck, just kind of compare them and see, do they stack up, what kind of information you get from one versus the other, really cool stuff like that. So that's kind of been my involvement with the lab, and it's been really useful and definitely going in different career stuff, exactly like what you're saying. When I'm writing now, it's like a whole different ball game because I have that usability in the back of my head. So that's kind of my experience with it.
I'm going to stand. I'm also not going to take it as a slight that I was the last one to present. I'm just going to say I'm Anchor, and I'm about to bring it home. Okay? So, if you don't know me, I'm David Young. I'm the Assistant Director for the undergrad program. What I'm here to talk to you guys about are some of the efforts that we've made within the curriculum to try and help you guys out. Dr. Moore and I both, Dr. Moore is the actual Director of Undergraduate Studies. Dr. Moore and I spent almost a year talking with undergraduates about how they're navigating the program and what they see in terms of gaps, what they see in terms of strengths. And one of the biggest gaps that we noticed, that we consistently heard from students, was that the program is so flexible that sometimes it's hard to decide what exactly I'm going to take as I'm moving through. And so I leave, and it's hard for me to articulate what skills I've built up over time. So hearing that, we're like, we don't want people to feel like that. We want you to realize and be able to articulate the skills that you have, and the ones that you've gained through coursework specifically. So one of the efforts that we've taken over the last probably 6 months or so is to develop usability tracks, as well as tracks for science writing, professional writing and editing. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones as well. You would think I had a worksheet right here. I do. The other one's digital communication. And so what we've tried to do is kind of stabilize the curriculum in such a way that when you come in and you're thinking about, well, what do I do with a degree in tech comm? We can hand you this handout and say, well, let's talk more about some of the classes that can lead to different career paths that you can have as a technical communicator. One of those being the usability track. And you're fortunate in the sense that I think we've spent quite a bit of time looking at other programs as well. Our undergraduate program offers more of the technical and technical communication than most programs do. That being said, there are really 3 classes that you can think about at the 3000 level that might be helpful, one of which, of course, is going to be usability, 3367. The other one is going to be 3368, which is information design, where you're really talking about the human part of how I'm going about designing information, how I'm going about designing things like technologies, etc. And the last one is going to be 3369 at the 3000 level, and that's going to be intro to web design. And so if you're looking at the more technical in tech comm, those are the 3 undergraduate courses at the 3000 level that are going to be most beneficial to you. If you'd like to talk more in detail about those, we can always do that. I've got a couple brochures up here as well that talk a bit more about them in detail, especially for you guys that aren't getting ready to graduate in December. Kristen Walker. At the 4000 level, we also have classes as well. I didn't mean to put you out like that, man. At the 4000 level, we've also got quite a few classes to offer as well. So 4369, which Jack is teaching right now, you can tell him how bad it's going. If it's going bad, that's okay. It's probably going really well.
It's the best class. It's the best class ever.
It is. It's better than yours. No, I'm kidding.
This is why it's me as assistant director of undergraduate studies. Because I'll take that, roll off like water. Not Sue says you got to be like melting ice. So 4369 is one. 4369 is one of the classes. It's interaction design. 4368 is advanced web design. So you'll build up on the principles that you've pulled up in the intro web design course. I think it's actually being offered next semester for the spring. Dr. Rice is teaching it. Even if you haven't had an opportunity to take the first version of it at the 3000 level, I think he's still open to hearing people talk about whether or not that's going to be a disadvantage or not. I don't think it would be, because we're talking about other things. Go ahead.
Sorry.
It's Chelsea, right?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I emailed him and he was like, I was like, why isn't the intro career? And he was like, maybe like if you're coming from computer science. But basically he said like if you could learn like HTML or CSS over the winter.
So scripting languages aren't that.
That's a markup language.
Markup languages aren't that hard to use. Guy says one thing over the entire time. That's what it's going to be. That's all. They're not that hard to pick up, and I tend to agree that you can pick it up. Mike, would you like to elaborate on that?
Oh no, yeah, markup languages, you can get really like introductory like material like books on Amazon for like $20. If you get one for HTML and then one for XML, and you just kind of go through them, they usually just have exercises really step by step. There's not a whole lot to it. If you want recommendations, I have a few in mind. Just from, even on the graduate level when we took publishing, we got an XML book that was really like basic and can get you started into something like that. So if you said you could take it over winter, I would agree. If you want to spend your winter break, some of it doing that, it'd probably be good anyway, because then you'll go in with a really strong foundation.
Walker, is that a comment?
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're looking for like free resources, W3 Schools is like
Yeah.
the go-to website. It's got a really great introduction to it, and it has like examples that you can try out, like see how your coding affects like what shows up on a website in like real time. So it's just really helpful.
Yeah, and I would add to that too. W3 Schools is great for the testing part. I don't know, like I use W3 Schools in conjunction with like the written material just because I felt like the written material gives you like the conceptual stuff, whereas W3 Schools is like, do this, it does this.
Yeah,
And
the
then,
syntax.
yeah, it's like this, it gives you the,
It's not gonna like explain all the terms exactly what they do, but it'll show you how to use them.
I have a book on XML I can just give to you. You can have it.
I've got
Yeah.
HTML, CSS.
Thanks, I.
If that's what he said, then yeah, I'll give you a book on it on XML.
Community library.
Yeah, we'll just like I'm not going to use it anytime soon. So
All right. So, there's plenty of opportunities if you still want to get into 4368 for the spring. These guys will give you straight books. For free.
Street books. Dude.
That's what we do here. You're home, we take care of each other, you know. One of the things I want to end with, because really, if the emphasis of me talking is just about the usability track, that's it in a nutshell. The courses that we offer are meant to help you guys, but we want to be able to help you in however we can. One of the things that Dr. Moore and I have tried to do is cultivate a community where you feel like you're valued and you feel like you have support whenever you need it. And that goes for the classes as you're taking them, and that goes for even beyond. One of the things that I've been doing over the last year and a half or so is cold calling alumni. Don't know if you've ever had to do that before. It's not a fun thing to do, but we do it for you guys. We want to be able to build up that network. You guys are going to be, especially you guys that are graduating, are going to be some of the first ones where we're trying to keep in touch as we're moving forward. Right now, we're trying to build back that network through kind of like reverse osmosis. But we want you guys to know that we're here to help you guys. That's our job. If you're coming from another department that you just happen to take a usability class, or you happen to take an interaction design class, and you're like, hey, I'm kind of digging this. This is home. That's kind of the branding that the department chair is kind of going with, and I think that's what we're picking up as well. Like, you come to the English department, you're home. You come to technical communication, it's just your little home away from home if you're an English major, okay? So we want to be able to take care of you guys. The tracks are one way that we try to do that. The other thing that you can always do is come talk with myself or Dr. Moore or any one of these guys. You see, you probably never met them before or even seen them, but they're going to give you things for free, okay? I think that's indicative of the tone that we're trying to set for the undergrad program. So if you ever have any questions, feel free to come by and see me. My office is right down the hall. It's in 211A. And we can sit down and chat about how you can navigate the program if that's something that might interest you. If the major seems like too long of a commitment for the time that you've got, the minor is always another option. We're talking 6 classes. If you've taken English 2311, you're already down with one of the requirements. The other requirement's 4380. That's another requirement. The other 4 classes in the middle, you can fill in with whatever you want. And if you wanted to be like, hey, I'm going to fill it in with the usability stuff or the technology and TechCom, like 3367, 68, 69, great, fantastic. We'll try and accommodate as best we can, okay? So feel free to let me know if you have any questions or want to talk about the tracks or how you can navigate through. My email is david.l.young. Don't forget the L. David.young. Works over at the Rec. Super nice man. Has forwarded me many emails in my time here. But I think he's getting a little sick of it. It's been like, this almost 5 years now. Like, I think he's tired of getting like, hey, I think this is for you. Okay? So don't forget the L. It's for Lamar, if that helps you remember. But feel free to let me know if you have any questions or just want to sit down and talk about what our curriculum can do for future career paths you might be interested in, especially those of you guys that are in usability now. Okay? All right. I also have handouts too and brochures. So feel free to come by and grab them after we're done.
All right, before we move on to the surprise announcement, I would like to open up for any questions or answers that people have. I'm really building up this. It's really cool. So if you have a question for Jack, Michael, David, or Kristen, please speak up.
I feel like I interrupted you. So were there just 2 4,000
There's actually 3 that we offer that we recommend in the track. One's the advanced web design, one is the interaction design, 4369, and the other one is developing instructional materials. And so this is the one that's going to help you write up those surveys, write up the test plans, and give you a little more insight on that, because that's what the focus is. But again, they're all in there too, so.
Highly recommend interaction design.
Highly.
I'll say professor is great. Amazing.
Okay.
That's what I've heard. I don't need any.
Don't need to, yeah, stop being such a kiss up.
Dude, David's over here getting
Oh, he
roasted.
does have a chili pepper on, right, our professor?
Oh,
yeah.
He's
You
got
should already know. Apparently he has a chili pepper on, right,
Means I'm
our
good
professor.
at teaching.
Any other questions? They don't have to do
I have a chili pepper, but I'm curious, what was like your biggest challenge working with user testing?
Biggest challenge, honestly, probably a really corny answer, and it's really indicative, I guess, of being a UX like nerd. Going home, it'd get to be like 3:30, and I'm like in the midst of like going through some like really awesome data, and I'm like, oh wait, I have to like get ready to pack up, like I can't start going through all these like interviews or something like that. No, it was just doing really cool research with things I knew how to do and things that I felt like I was perfecting as I was going through. So yeah, I don't know, just really cool, interesting projects. Whatever company, if you end up being a UX researcher at any of these companies, it's just really cool to be able to talk to real people that use that product or service, and hear what they have to say and make recommendations on how to improve. It's just really fun.
You're right. That was
Was your
quaint.
internship required for your master's, and if not, what made you do it?
It was not required. My research focus is in UX and things like that. I worked in our lab here, but I never really worked as a UX researcher at an actual company, and I felt like going out into a tech industry and being a UX researcher, especially at a place like user testing that does user testing, was a really cool opportunity to improve myself as a researcher and as an instructor of usability interaction design. And so, right place, right time, and it worked out. More questions?
Why? What made you come here?
What made me come here? So I am really interested in UX and usability and accessibility. I applied here, Auburn, and University of Washington.
Oh.
PhD. University of Washington had a human-centered design program that was really good. Auburn, it would have started off letting me create, I guess, the pilot for a new PhD in tech on there. But here, all of my professors who taught me everything I knew came from here, except for one. And so our lab is actually modeled after this lab. It's a little bigger, but it's essentially the same setup. I heard a lot of good things about the faculty here and about the quality of the program in general. I like green and I like trees, and it's a little lagging here, but
If you were told that was here, you were lied to.
but I looked at the quality of education that I would get here and the experience that I would get, and the fact that I could take this either way, into instruction and teaching. That freedom means a lot to me. And so I decided to come down and pay a visit. Tech brought me out here and treated me to tacos and stuff. It was pretty good. And then I realized after that the community was on par, if not better than how I felt about the education. So the support system, the network here, really meant a lot. Every time I go to conferences I went to conferences in Houston and in Portland, and there were Texas Tech people everywhere. And it was as if I wasn't even in the program yet, and it was as if I was already welcome. So that's a big part of it here. So quality education.
We're really happy someone drinks chili pepper on my professor, and he's like, I got
No, look.
Wait, what?
That's
He
part of
said
it.
what?
I'm not gonna make the joke.
Hear you.
Nice stuff.
Thanks, Walter.
I think the message is clear. Anybody here is more than happy to talk to you about any other questions you have. So I'm going to move on to the surprise. So today, specifically today, I was reached out by Lauren Reichert. She is an alum of Texas Tech. She recently graduated, what, a year, or maybe a year, 2 years ago?
2016.
Okay. With her master's from this program. She is now the senior usability or UX person at Hive 9, and they are recruiting specifically from our program for an opening in technical writing and user experience interns. So if you are looking to do something in this field and you want to get your hands on something, you want to live in Austin for a little while, and you have 1 year of experience in tech comm, all of you, you're very more than qualified to apply for this. So I have a whole thing from her she would love for me to send out to you, but I wanted to give it to the people who are in this room or online first. So I'm happy to send this to you personally by email, but I also send this to the listserv after today's meeting. So that's kind of a surprise. She is coming here first to recruit from us.
Cool.
Yeah.
Is that like a summer internship or like spring internship?
I have a feeling that it is a summer internship, but I'd have to read a little bit closer.
I'm sure.
Wouldn't be too sure. They're still looking for spring. That's the time the last.
Yeah, I was gonna say like maybe
Fair.
if you were to apply for it and talk to her about it, there might be a chance they could open it up for the spring.
I mean, there's some people that like I've applied and they're still like in the midst of the process for hiring for like spring internships. So
Could be.
I don't know.
I guess, yeah, I would have to double check with her, but we all were in the same cohort as her, pretty familiar with her, and could reach out very soon. Happy to pass along any personal knowledge.
If you're on the fence, throw your hat out there. Now's the time.
for
If
sure.
you're thinking about it, now's the time to try it. This is an internship. It's the only time you're going to get to really say, is this really going to work out for me? I don't know. We'll see. And it's no harm, no foul when you leave. You want to be trying things out for a full-time job later.
Anyway, if you are particularly interested or like more information, it's Lauren at hive9.com. Lauren.
Lauren's really nice too.
It doesn't say in her initial email either whether or not it's for spring or summer. It just said that she's working on trying to secure compensation. So I guess it depends on how that went.
So you can get course credit and then also possible compensation. But
Course credit's $43.78. You have to come talk to me or Dr. Moore about it.
So that's really the exciting news. I hope that you guys are going to apply. I hope that we can reach back a couple years later and have that network with Hive 9 twice fold. The other thing I wanted to talk about very quickly is that the usability research lab that Kristen is currently working research on with Michael and then 3 of our actual UX class students right now.
Oh, okay.
Is recruiting for some extra participants. So if you have friends who are non-English majors who would like to get $5 for about half an hour of their time, please send them our way. We would love to schedule them in the usability lab. So you can send them to me or to anybody.
Can they be grad students?
No, it has to be undergrad, sorry.
Okay.
Undergrad, non-majors, non-English majors.
Just making sure.
Throwing that out there.
For $5 for usability studies, I'm sure.
Yep.
Okay.
Come talk to us for half an hour. Get some Amazon credit.
Cool.
Alright. That's all I have on here for the agenda, but I would love to get a picture so we can see what we're doing if you guys wouldn't mind. Perhaps all huddling in this back corner with more